Welcome to the Now or Never show. I am your host, Kimberly Trapani, and I'd like to introduce a very important guest. But before I do that, I just want a minute of silence. I'd like to introduce my guest, Michelle Campione. Thank you for coming, Michelle, and talking to me today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and where are you from,
I'm
Michelle?
from Cohoes, New York.
Yeah, Cohoes is a place where I was raised too, and can you describe the town for me and what it's like to grow up in Cohoes?
It was a lot different than it is now. It was more of a quiet town, but now I feel like between the mayor and other government officials, it's turned into more of a corrupt political place to live.
Yes, and when we grew up simply in a small town. It wasn't a whole lot of fluff.
Right.
And I agree with you that it has changed over some time. And I just wanted to talk to you, Michelle, a little bit about you're a mom of a son named Joshua. Can you tell me a little bit about Joshua?
Sure. Contrary to what the New York State Police put in the media when my son was found, Joshua was not just an Albany man. He just completed a semester of college. He was going to go for social work. He wanted to help youth, troubled youth, and he was actually joining the Marine Corps the next day. So he had a huge, bright future ahead of him. Um, yeah.
And from what I've heard about him, he was joining the military and he wanted to go to college, so he had his whole life ahead of him.
He did.
What did he enjoy to do the most at the time when he was enrolling in college?
He loved art. He loved helping the underdog. He would give a person the shirt off his back. He was very active, and he enjoyed drawing and being artistic as well.
And creative people can do so much in the world, and I appreciate that about your son. I wish I got to know Joshua myself. Can you tell me a little bit about what he was going to be doing in college?
Yeah, he wanted to work with youth, troubled youth, and that was his main focus. He came a long way. When he was younger, he got into some trouble, and was in the UCAN program from out of Cohoes with Judge Andrea Ackerman. She started that program, and there was a lot of not following through with certain promises that they made to the youth, and they would, like my son, never got a mentor.
So it inspired him to be one.
Right. Yeah. But still, in all, they promised him one, and he never got it. They just kind of pushed him along. He graduated the first time. Ackerman put him in again, and he was rearrested because of alcoholism issues. And she gave him the uh, the second diploma, anyways. So,
did he like school? How are his grades?
oh, to be honest, no, he didn't like school. He liked college, though. Once he got in there, he graduated his first semester. He just graduated right before he passed, and he got all A's and B's.
Awesome.
So,
That's
yeah.
so notable.
Yeah.
I know this is difficult. We don't like to talk about things. We want our kids to succeed in life, and we want them to thrive in life and be successful. But can you tell me what happened to Joshua?
On June 10th, it'll be, today it's the 3-year anniversary that he was found dead in Peoples Island State Park. He was fully clothed with a backpack on. He had been swimming with his friends, quote unquote, the day before, into the evening hours. He was with Tashana Daniels, Marcus Ford, Gio Ortiz, and Brandon Gaynor, who they stayed with the story that they left him down at the cliffs, and he was drinking, so he must have fallen from the cliffs and floated on down to the People's State Park. The problem with that story is that Joshua only had one contusion on his head in his temporal region. Once I requested the autopsy report, he didn't have any water in his lungs. He didn't have the injuries that would help back up their story of he fell from the cliffs and floated down.
Whose story was that?
It was the people that were with him last. And
I see.
They told the police. The police, actually, June 11th, I filed a FOIL with the New York State Park Police. And for anyone that doesn't know how to file a FOIL, I suggest and encourage that you message me on Facebook, and I can show you how to do that, or show you what I've done with FOILs, requesting information from state agencies. And so the state park police said that New York State Police said they spoke to Marcus Ford. He said that he left Joshua down there, and the New York State Police were thinking that he fell from the falls and floated down. The falls were not on. The water was 3.5 feet deep. My son weighed 210 pounds, and he's been swimming since he was 4 years old. You can't even access the falls from where they said they were. You'd have to be on the other side of the river. None of it makes sense.
So tell me a little bit, if this is not adding up with the stories of the friends that he was with,
Yeah.
and the reports of the police.
Right.
Tell me a little bit. Can you walk me through that evening from what you think the facts might have been?
Okay, so from Josh's phone records, which the police didn't even check, I saw messages from Marcus asking Joshua to come and hang out. Joshua had just moved to Cohoes, right around the corner from the place where they were hanging out. It's called the Horseshoe on Cohoes Island. And Joshua went and hung out. They were drinking. Joshua was seen at the store getting alcohol, and they were all drinking. I don't know what happened after that. The people that were with him last said there was an altercation between Joshua and Tashana Daniels, and they left him down there, and in the dark, and it just doesn't make any sense. And then he must have fallen and drowned. That is the story that they're giving me. And I asked the New York State Police, from where? Where did he fall? He didn't fall from the cliffs because the injuries don't sustain that, So where did he fall from? There's no evidence of a fall from anywhere. So it just, they're just plugging in what looks good on paper.
So, what with the autopsy
Mhm.
for that night? And granted, there's kids will be kids.
Yeah.
They'll play. I know when I was growing up, people it was cool to drink and
Right.
hang out with kids and everything. And the mayor
That's
himself encourages these rock on the blocks to get drunk in the streets. So it just we get that, but first from a safety perspective, can you tell me what the autopsy report read?
okay. So that's another thing too. If anyone wants to see the autopsy report, they're just contact me. I have no problem. So the autopsy, it was 2.5 pages. Um, let me start off by saying the pathologist he wasn't a forensic pathologist. My son was found alone, dead by himself, covered in blood. They shipped his body from Albany County to Schenectady, which they shouldn't have done to begin with, to this Dr. Ning, who did a half-assed autopsy report. They tested for alcohol. There's no other tests shown, but my son has a history with alcohol, so they wanted to make sure he was drinking. But they said they tested for drugs. There's no evidence of that on the autopsy report. There's no water in his lungs. They told me there was. And the laceration on his head, they didn't measure it. They didn't test anything else. Like the substance in his stomach, they said brown substance. They didn't send it off to have tested or utilize the resources paid for by New York State taxpayers.
So I'm thinking, what story would, if I was a good friend, I would be hanging out in the evening time, drinking with other friends, but making sure we all stayed together to the end of the night. And so, and I've raised kids that I love, and I would be saying to my child, if you're gonna drink, that's fine, but make sure you have a taxi and make sure you all stay together and huddle together and make sure everybody gets home safe.
Right.
What story did the kids that he was with give for reasons why they left the falls before your son?
Right. Okay. So to start off, Marcus Ford claimed that he was Joshua's best friend. When they were younger, they were good friends. For 3 years after that, and the prior 3 years to his death, they didn't really talk. And it proves it on his social media, on his text messages. And he was like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a long time, whatever." So they just said that Joshua got into an altercation with Tashana, and they all left him down there, and that was just good enough for the police. They didn't utilize the polygraph, which they pride themselves on having an excellent polygraph team. And they didn't, like I said, they didn't test the blood on them. They didn't test their clothes. They didn't check anything. Nothing.
What did Tishana say? Did he say he got into an altercation with your son, or what story did he give?
That's what she said. She said that Tashona is a female.
Oh, pardon.
Yeah, she said that she got into an altercation with him. And that was the end of that.
And did she just leave?
Yeah, she had her kids down there
Okay.
at 2 something in the morning. She said her two children, underage children, were down at the horseshoe with them. And I don't know, as they're mandatory state reporters, New York State Police. Why wasn't she even reported for that? It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes sense. Yeah.
And okay, well, knowing what I know about issues with homicide investigations around here, and most recently, a child was thrown in the river, and was hanging around with like a convicted felon at midnight, and do you think that the police officers with homicide investigations are doing their due diligence and are handling homicide investigations and mysterious deaths? We don't want to accuse anybody, but just wondering about mysterious deaths and homicide
Suspicious.
investigations. Yes, absolutely. Are the police doing everything that they can right now to get to the bottom of mysterious deaths and homicides and weird drownings with no waters and lungs?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I believe that they are for certain elite. They get to cherry pick 100% who gets resources paid by the New York State taxpayers, Albany County residents. Who gets those resources and who doesn't. And with my son's case, it was who doesn't. Um, they didn't, like I said, they didn't test the clothes that he was wearing, the blood that was on him. They didn't use polygraph. They just questioned, and that was good enough for them. And it was, the new mayor in Cohoes, who knows, maybe it was, we don't want, attention to our New York State parks in Cohoes with, a death, so they didn't even want to list it as suspicious. Another death happened right after Kyle Reddington, and she was actually with a man who was about 10 feet from her when she was found, and they went and questioned him, and the mother said, why isn't he being charged with something? And they said, well, he lawyered up what he wants to do. Case closed. Accidental drowning. So, yeah.
Very odd, and we'll get more into thoughts on what needs to be improved after we take a commercial break. But before our commercial break, can you tell me about Joshua and his personality and what characteristics you loved about him?
Yeah, Joshua was very giving and caring, stubborn like me, but I love that about him too. And he was definitely not a quitter, and that's what I don't want to quit with this. He'd be proud.
And when he grew up, what can you think of certain memories you had with him, like anything you did together that would?
Yeah. We used to go to camping twice a year. I would go for Memorial Day and then again for 4th of July. We'd go to Lake George. And we'd also go to Cape Cod, P-Town. And we'd go and watch the parades and stuff. And he used to love going there. He said, Mom, you know why I like coming here? And I said, why? And he said, because everybody can be themselves.
Absolutely and definitely. And we're just going to take a commercial break. But when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into autopsies and police reports. Stay tuned.
They can see.
Hello, my name is Maria Perez. I am from San Antonio, Texas. 34 years ago, I was a victim of human trafficking.
Hello, I'm Brian Shree from Texas. As a previous probation and parole officer who supervised the most violent and repeated sex offenders in Florida and in Texas, human trafficking continues to this day as one of the most heinous crimes of modern day society.
I'm Kimberly Trapani, all-consuming film.
Right now, traffics are robbing a staggering 24.9 million people of their freedom and basic human dignity. That's roughly 3 times the population of New York City.
they can see. They can feel.
J. Green Talks.
They did call the police, but the police declined to file a report. They didn't do anything. They listened to the story and said, well, there's nothing we can do for you. Although she was 4, she's actually very petite for her age, so she could have passed for a 2-year-old, and that makes it even worse. As far as I'm concerned, they're trying to take a child that they think won't even put up a fight.
Went along with him, and the area was not appropriate for any good woman to be at. It was more of a men's bar. When I saw him opening the trunk, I didn't want to get off. I didn't want to leave from that area. I just wanted to stay stuck in my seat. And he says, get off the vehicle, and he shows me his gun. So I got off the vehicle, and I was very much wanted to run. You have no idea how much I wanted to run, but I couldn't run in those shoes. And I remember seeing a church on my left-hand side. And then in me, I was praying to God. It was a Catholic church. It was a Virgen de San Juan church. I remember that. I can see it from the area I was at. And that area, I will never forget. The church, the area I was at, that's when he put me in the trunk. Then he was driving me to the border.
Operate in a direction that is a little bit more logical.
And that's where the controlling, and that's where he was, no, and now I own you.
To say, and I'll say it again, America has to get better at fixing a broken system.
Mm-hmm.
In ways of direct communication with legislators and having human trafficking, child abuse, violence, child sex crimes, pedophilia, rape, domestic violence a priority of the legislators. And until it happens to a member of the government, we can only create a sense of urgency for them by staying in their face.
We're back and we're just chatting with Joshua, an amazing kid. His mother, Michelle Campione, is absolutely wonderful to be talking with us today. And I have to tell you, I should have known Joshua, because if I knew Joshua, I would have made sure Joshua had everything in Cohoes that he needed, and some mentorship and some support when I taught children in 11 school districts in upstate New York. Michelle, I appreciate everything you're telling us. Before we get into it a little deeper, can you give me some shout outs and tell me about the programs?
Sure. I'd like to mention Jennifer Hall, who her son was Christopher Hall. He was in the UCAN program. ran by Andrea Ackerman. He had a mentor, Chris Briggs, that was assigned to him. Christopher, he had some mental illness and some depression that he was dealing with. And when he approached his mentor with these issues, his mentor said, quote, "Suck it up. My niece has mental illness and she's just fine." Um, well, uh, Christopher hung himself.
Wow.
So
That's terrible.
yeah,
Awful.
I feel like the programs that are in place for these youths, young adults, children, adults, there should be more involvement and follow through with them. And the people that are in charge and mentoring, maybe they should be rechecked. You know.
Absolutely. And can you tell me a little bit about the people that supported Joshua?
As far as in his family.
It could have been anything, schools,
Yeah.
family.
So he had family support. Like I said, he was very stubborn, and when he was younger, he got into alcohol, which got him into some trouble. And that's hard to handle someone that's, battling authority and going the other way. So the UCAN program, the first time he was in there, he succeeded, and it was great. But as soon as he got out, he hung out with the wrong crew again and got back into the same things. So he was put in it again. That time he got a diploma for being in there, but he was rearrested and he didn't technically graduate by the rules. But then as he got older, he realized that he had to change, and he did. He did it. I give him all the credit. He did it. He was a strong individual who, he would go head to head with me, but once I backed up, then he did it all by himself, and I can't be more proud.
We both know the system is corrupt.
Yeah.
What needs to happen in the system? If you were me going to legislators, what would you tell them?
Well, number one, there has to be accountability. Equal for all. The New York State Police, when I complained to the governor of New York State about the New York State Police, he sent my complaint back to the New York State Police. So when you complain about them, they're the most shielded agency out there. You complain about them, and you complain to them. That's, what I mean? There's no one overseeing that. And I think there has to be accountability for these people equally, through the county, through the city. And if things don't change, nothing is going to change. They're going to continue to get away with the things that they do. And it's not fair.
And sometimes we have more going on when we're a governor than what we can talk about on air. And I get and understand that we all have lives, but when someone's child is gone to whatever happened, there's got to be accountability and has to be some sort of system in place where what to do. Because do you remember how you felt when you got the call? Were you I don't think it would have been a happy moment. I know when I got a call with my loved one's death, I felt paralyzed and tired and wasn't thinking clearly. So, do you remember at that time what you needed as a mother of a child to happen?
Well, for me, I fell to my knees, and I was all the way in Washington State. it felt like a dream, like a bad nightmare. And at that time, the police were telling me things, and it was you're in fog, you're in a fog, and you're just kind of taking the information in. But it took a few days before I was like, this doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense. And I started saying things and realized that to the small Albany blogger told me that I could file foils and get the autopsy reports, and they taught me a lot about stuff like that.
And when we think of foil, we think of that weird material that we cook with. So, walk me through the process of how long it takes and what this foil is.
It's a Freedom of Information law, which everyone is entitled to request these from the state agencies independently from, whether it be the Coast Police, whether it be New York State Police, State Park Police. So yeah, I've done that, but they have to be very detailed and worded the right way in order for you to get the information that you're looking for. So like I said, I suggest people do that 100%. If they're questioning things, you can see what the police did, or what they said, what's on those reports. And I think that's important for people to know.
Let's get into, and Joshua was a very special person. He was going to enlist in the military. He was going to college.
Yeah.
Let's get into Joshua as a whole. Like, what could have saved Joshua? We all struggle with some sort of addiction, so we're not judging that.
Right.
We all have problems. 58 Americans have mental illness. Alcohol and drugs in New York State is a disease, and it's a dependency, and it's a brain disorder. But what did Joshua need to live?
I say this all the time. I wish that he wouldn't have gone to Cohoes, because Cohoes, like we were talking, it's a different place now.
Yeah.
It's, there's a lot of drug and mental illness there. A lot of people getting away with jumping people, robbing people. It's a mess over there. And I wish that he wouldn't have gone to Cohoes. But I also wish that he would have gotten the help that the UCAN program promised to him before. And if they followed through with things and had more support, positive support in that program, I think that he would have done better. But he was doing great for the last year of his life. And so that question is kind of tricky for me, because he went from down low to where he was right before he died. He just made that decision to go and hang out with those people that night, and he was getting his act together, and he really was going to be somebody more.
How old was Joshua when he passed?
22.
A 22-year-old has their whole life ahead of them. What do you think Joshua would have aspired to be? What would he be doing today if he was breathing and alive? Where would he be right now?
He'd be thriving in the Marines. 100%. 100%. That was his dream. So, yeah.
To help people.
Yeah, help people. And he definitely, the Marine Corps was what he's talked about since he was young. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
He wanted to fight for a country that turned their back on him, which is kind of sad. When I found out that all the officials, no one was listening to me, and I was trying to reach out to everyone, I went around to the local people, New York State taxpayers, Albany County residents, and I got almost 500 signatures to have my son's case put into a different agency's hands. I wrote it down to the Attorney General in Albany, and no one ever got back to me. No one responded to my phone calls, my emails, the almost 500 signatures, no one.
Ms. James, you got a problem, and we're going to discuss it later. And I am absolutely going to give Joshua's mom your email address.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the system. And I know it's so complex, but do you think that we need improvements on what gets done for people that are mysteriously deceased?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. There should be someone taking care of that step by step and someone overlooking that to make sure that that person is doing their job. Like I said, these are public paid, officials that money is coming from us, New York State taxpayers. And they shouldn't have the right to just either shove someone to the side and leave their loved ones, in awe, like what happened, and questioning. It's bad enough losing someone that you love, let alone, having questions and things not make sense because they're not doing what they're paid to do.
And again, the system is so unfair. Michelle could have had a daughter-in-law, a grandchild, a wedding to attend to with her 22-year-old son that mysteriously had issues going on that night with fake reports of water in the lungs. What would you tell a police officer about the way your son's investigation was handled? What do they need to do that's different to help other people in your situation, in your family?
I went to the New York State Police, and I had a meeting. And I sat down, and the first thing that they said to me was, "We just want to let you know that we support our investigation and our investigators 100%." And I just sat down without me even saying anything, or they just wanted to get that out there. So that's basically what you say doesn't matter.
So it's a cover your ass
Yes.
mentality when you're sitting there groping for answers of your 22-year-old son,
Yes.
and they're more concerned about covering their asses.
Yes. And the corruption of the New York State Police goes way back. This isn't an isolated case where it's just my son. This is other people too. And, until accountability happens, and people get involved, it's not going to change. It's like fighting the mafia by yourself.
I'm just appalled. And what would you tell the legislators to do at this point in time with the police department, the mediocre autopsies they have, and the falsifying of information about surrounding your son's death?
Again, there has to be accountability. There has to be someone overlooking these things, and there's not. And the people that are just as corrupt, and it's like they don't care. It's not on their level, they don't care. They let the New York State Police handle it or whatever, and no one listens. I went to assemblymen, I went to Congress people, Democrats, Republicans, everybody in the middle, no one, not one single person helped.
Remind me, because I know we changed hands on leadership in New York State, and who was the governor at the time of Joshua's passing? Christopher Cuomo, I am calling you. And also, what would you tell others in your situation about what to do from day one if they're assuming, if they're knowing their child's death isn't quite right?
Right. I would suggest that you question things and you immediately go. I mean, the district attorney in Albany, I even contacted them. They wouldn't do anything because the New York State Police labeled it an accident. So if they labeled it suspicious or other, it would have been fine. Then the DA said that he would have gotten involved. But because they didn't, they said hands off. So I would suggest, not to give up. Don't give up. Don't give up fighting. We all should stick together. Find people like you and come together. We have to do that. We have to make change.
So just to recap here of the evening that night of your son's passing at 22. He was getting together with friends and they were drinking alcohol, but he was of age to drink alcohol, so that really wasn't illegal. And just to recap, there was a report that said there was a fall, but there wasn't really any evidence of a fall, correct?
Yes.
And there was water in his lungs, so he drowned, but there really wasn't water in the lungs, correct?
They didn't even tell me that he was covered in blood, dried blood. So, yeah.
How long did it take from start to finish for your son's official investigation to close, from start to finish?
They wanted to close it the next day, and I fought to keep it open. And I started contacting people, and they kept it open for 6 months, approximately, and then they closed it. I filed a FOIL immediately to obtain the records, and it took them over a year to get those to me. And because of the time frame, I made a complaint, and then they got it to me.
Wow.
But yeah, I had to make a formal complaint in order to get that. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm still fighting for my own son's autopsy photos. I don't even know if they were taken. I requested them from the coroner's medical examiner, Albany County, and Helen, who works there, said, Michelle, I sent you all I have. I don't have any photos. The New York State Police said they did. When they closed the case, I could have them, and I filed for it, and they denied me. I spoke to Dr. Ning himself, and he said that he gave them to the New York State Police and the Cohoes Police. I contacted the Cohoes Police, and they said, we didn't have anything to do with the case. We never even had the photos.
It's not their jurisdiction.
No.
I know. I got it. What message would you have for Joshua if you could talk to him right now?
Oh, God. It's good. I'm going to try not to break down. I just, I'd love to tell him that I love him and I miss him. And I was proud of the man that he became and was trying to be. That's
Absolutely and definitely. And can you tell me about the tattoo that you got for Josh?
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm dedicating a sleeve. This one, he loved timepieces and he collected timepieces, pocket watches and stuff. He used to have bad dreams when he was younger, so I got him a dream catcher. And so he collected dream catchers, and he made me one before he passed. And so I got the timepiece with his thumbprint breaking the glass at 6:10, which is the day that he died. And I incorporated into the dream catcher. And then I got Joshua 1:9, which is a Bible verse. Be strong, be courageous. God is with you.
Be strong, be courageous, and definitely God is with you. And is there anything that you can tell me about possible signs of your son you see, or things that you just can't put your finger on, but you know he's there?
Yeah. the numbers 555 always come up. When I'm thinking about them, I'll look at the clock and it'll be 555. It was the time that I left uh, the wake as well. I left and it was 555, so that comes up a lot. I see cardinals, like those come up a lot. Rainbows. There was one after he passed. There was one that was leading close to where he was found, up to the sky. So things like that. Yeah.
How do you celebrate Joshua's life?
Oh, it's hard. It's hard because I have to struggle. Trying to battle for answers. It's hard to really celebrate. Period. For me, anyways, holidays are hard. Um, he used to make my birthday special. My birthday's Christmas Day, so he would always give me just a birthday gift to make sure that it was separate from Christmas. So yeah, that's really hard. It's hard to celebrate anything.
Do you have support?
My sister China, yeah. She's definitely a big support. She was very close to my son. But I try not to really put things on others because it's hard. You feel like people get sick of hearing about things, and so yeah.
If there was one thing that the community could have done for you to support you a little bit differently, because as you know, I've been through the loss of a loved one too, and some people are not so understanding.
Right.
What would you have needed?
I think action. I think that the community helped with the signatures and they showed their support, but that's as far as they were willing to really go. Um, I think that action needs to be taken. I think that these government officials, like I said, they need accountability and they need all of us taxpayers and people that pay their salaries to come together and make change.
Anything else you want to tell people that are struggling and going through the same thing that this utter hell nightmare that you've been through to encourage them?
Like I said, I think that you just don't give up. Don't give up. Fight and consistency. Just stay on these people. I've wrote hundreds of emails, and it feels like every time I hit a brick wall, but I have to keep going. I have to keep going. I may never get justice for my son now because of the New York State Police dropping the ball and shoving it under the rug, but I can at least try to help others. So,
What would justice mean for you?
Again, accountability and people being held accountable equally. Justice would be answers. Actually, that makes sense. What happened to my son that night? I would encourage people to push for the government officials to do their jobs and to utilize all of the resources that are given to them, paid for by you.
John McDonald, hello. Joe Biden, hello. Ron DeSantis, hello. Steve Daines, hello. Anything else you want to tell us?
I think that's it for now. Thank you. I appreciate.
I have a gift for you. This is something that my sister would have wanted you to have.
Thank you so much.
And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you going on air to tell the
I really
world.
appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am praying for you. I'm praying for your family.
Thanks.
We'll never have peace over this. It's too difficult. And people told me different things of how to cope, and I was supposed to take an anxiety pill, and that would just take it all away. It just doesn't.
There's no magic pill.
Yeah.
There's no magic pill.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Seriously.
You can open it.
Thank you. Butterfly. Thank you.
And there's
Thank you so much.